everyone. Welcome to episode 17 of Sisters Talk. I'm Marie Robinson.
And I'm Charlene Lutz.
And today we have a special guest. I'm going to, Char, would you mind introducing our guest?
Yeah. So today we have with us Carolyn Blacker.
Harper.
Do you go by Cohen or Blacker?
I go by Harper. I know it's very confusing because of my past lives, but I go by Harper, Carolyn Harper.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, and so today, before we get into you introducing sort of what you do, who you are in the world, I know that one of the key pieces that we wanted to touch on is this idea of resilience. So, kind of just like an overarching, I guess, topic that we'll be having as part of the conversation today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, great. So, Carolyn, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I am a textile artist. I live and work in the Philadelphia area, and I exhibit in Philadelphia, but also all over the country at galleries, museums, nonprofits. I'm also trying to get into more non-art spaces such as churches, cafes, even outdoor venues such as parks. And my work has a really strong social justice component to it. For the last 10 or 12 years, I've been creating portraits of people who have been abused or discriminated against or forgotten by society. And for the last 3 years, I've really been focusing on the issue of mass incarceration and creating portraits of people who have been impacted by mass incarceration, including those who have been incarcerated wrongly. And I've worked with the Innocence Project on this a little bit. And it's important to me to try to tell the stories of people who have been forgotten by society and people who have been in prison. They literally are forgotten. You know, we can't see them, we don't think about them. And so through my portraiture and every time I exhibit the work, I also have next to each portrait a written statement by or about the person, telling about them. And so I'm just really trying to make people aware about this issue, but also aware of each individual story, each person who I'm portraying.
I love that. I think that's such a deep-rooted sense of purpose that you have. It sounds like, you've been embarking on this journey for quite some time. How long have you been doing this?
So I've been doing this for about 12 years, working with the issue of mass incarceration specifically for the last 3 years. And I've really thrown myself into it. So not only do I do the portraits, but I've been doing more advocacy work as well. And I also write letters to 50 incarcerated women every month and have been, just formed relationships with a lot of those women and doing advocacy work on behalf of people who should not be in prison.
Wow.
Amazing.
That is amazing. It really is. I can't think of a better word to describe it. It's just not only the art itself, which is stunning, the pieces that you create, they're very large a lot of the time. They hold so much emotion, but I wonder how this affects you and kind of that interconnected piece of this where you're kind of giving back and you're receiving and they're receiving. I just was thinking about that while you were talking, this whole sort of humanistic, it's so important, I think, and many people, I don't know, don't have time or it gets sort of pushed aside. But how do you think about that? Or
That's a really interesting question. And I feel so, I came at this not really understanding the issue of mass incarceration or understanding the people who have been affected. And, I was so happy that this episode is about resilience, because one thing that I have been humbled by is the resilience of the people that I've met, people who in some cases have spent years or even decades in prison, sometimes wrongly, sometimes for a crime they had nothing to do with. And yet they are almost always, in talking to them, they have so much humility. And for example,
Mm.
one woman who was incarcerated for 19 years for a crime she didn't commit. And now she works for the Innocence Project and started her own nonprofit. And she told me she has no anger because she will not allow that into her life.
Wow.
And
That's
that
amazing.
is so, it is amazing to me. And it's so, it has been really humbling to me to, to get to know people like that who live their lives like that, because that is what I strive for. You know,
Yeah.
I strive to have that resilience in my own life, and it's not always easy. And one
Yeah.
thing that has helped me though is the process of creating each piece. Each of my pieces are hand sewn. And as you said, some of them are quite large. Like the largest one is about 12 feet by 14 feet, and it's all hand sewn. So it's very obsessive, very compulsive. I always joke that there's an aspect of like mental insanity to the process, but I will say that it is actually very soothing, almost meditative, to be able to just sit and sew and just get into the process like that. And it has helped me to become more resilient in my life as well.
Mm. I can imagine that. And as you were just talking and especially sharing about the woman that doesn't hold any anger, it's making me think about a book I recently listened to that connects that resilience to the spirituality.
Mm.
Do you see that connection with the relationships that you have developed and even within yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So the woman, Christine Bunch, that I just mentioned, she is a devout Christian, and her faith and her spirituality has really helped her. And so
Mm.
many of the other people who I've met are also not always religious, but definitely spiritual,
Mm.
sometimes
Mm.
religious as well, but
Sure.
often they just have a deep sense of being part of a world in which there is a higher power that,
Mm.
in spite of all the madness and the wrongness, is there for them. And I definitely feel that in my own life. And that was something that came to me late in life. I'm 58. And for me, that connection with the higher power happened during the pandemic. And it is something that I share with so many of the people that whose artwork I create. And what I found is it doesn't matter. I consider myself a Christian. I have become really good friends with a woman who is an American Muslim. And I did a portrait of her and her family and her son. And it doesn't matter that she's a Muslim and I'm a Christian. We both
Right.
share this sense of faith, and that brings us together in yet another way.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I think, going back to that, that oneness, right? And there's so many things
Mm.
happening in our world that are, in my opinion, separating people. And if we just get to the root of it, we're all humans and we all have so much more in common than what we don't have in common. And I think, just hearing your story, I think it's just beautiful. It's
It is.
absolutely beautiful.
That's so important to me, what you just said, because, and I actually was in a class yesterday talking to some high school students about this very thing. We have become so polarized in in our country, in our communities. You're either for Trump or you're for Biden. You're conservative or you're liberal. You're for Israel or you're for Palestine. You're for this or there's no, we've forgotten that there are so many areas of gray in the world.
Absolutely.
We don't see the nuance in all of these situations.
Mm.
And what I have found is it's so important to try to talk to people, not just talk, really more listen to people who are
Yeah.
vastly different from me. And I remember when Donald Trump was first elected as president, and I was kind of horrified, and I was working at a homeless shelter, and I had this conversation with this young man, who was a young African American. And I just assumed because he was young and because he was Black that he shared my politics. And he said, "Oh no, I think Trump is going to be a great president." And we sat down together and he explained to me exactly why he thought that. And then he
Mm.
said to me, you know, you need to not judge people by the way they look. And he was
Wow.
absolutely right.
Mm.
And I found that in my conversation with him, it didn't make me into a Trump supporter, but it definitely helped me understand that point of view. And I feel like we need to be open to to people and points of view that are different from our own. Because that's the only way that we can, in my opinion, uh, fix what's broken.
Right.
Sure.
Well, and I know for me, one of the reasons that I've connected so much with your work and your art is this idea of focusing on strength. And it's something that Maria and I have talked about a lot,
Yes.
and since I've been here and before that. But there are so many ways that you could focus on the negative of what happened and how these people are living and surviving. But it's this underlying strength, right? That's sort of like coming through, and even in the images themselves. I mean, they are so vibrant and just so beautiful, and they just, this overwhelming strength is I think really put into your face, kind of. And I know that's probably what you mean to happen, is you want
Yeah,
people to see these and look at these because they're that important. And I just think that as a whole, community of people in the world, we have to be willing to look at the strengths that we all
Yes.
carry and how they overlap,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
Instead of
that's
picking.
exactly right. So most of the people that I talk to don't want to be seen as a victim, even though they
Mm,
are or were victimized. They don't want that to be what people see. They want people to see their strengths. They want people to see what they've overcome and how they've become better people.
right.
And I find that incredibly powerful. And that is something that I really want to portray in the portraits that I do is, sure, I want to show the pain, but the strength and the overcoming and the resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think not only powerful, but empowering. So I think when I see and think about the work that you're doing, and when we think about resilience, and we've all had our own situations of, quote unquote trauma to varying, extremely varying degrees.
Absolutely.
But then how do we recognize those as life lessons, right? And I think that's kind of where I would guess people are coming from when they come out from a really challenging traumatic experience, being victimized, being wrongly incarcerated.
Yeah.
You really have to come to that from a place of this is my life lesson. I'm not judging it. I'm grateful for the experience. So now
Mm,
I can come back, like the woman you spoke about now. I mean, 19 years is a long time. Of course, it's a
mm,
tremendously
yes.
long time. But if you look at now, what is it? It's fueled her to do something
Yes.
that's having a tremendous impact on the lives of so many other people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, she told me that she used her experience to give meaning to her life and to give
Mm,
meaning to the lives of others.
mm,
And
Love that.
um,
yeah.
that's that is really important for me as well, because I think through portraiture people can sort of see themselves in a different way, in a new
Mm,
light. So they can see themselves as not just someone who was homeless or someone who was incarcerated or someone who is a felon, but they can see themselves as a strong individual with an important story.
100%.
so important that you're telling these stories. I am so, so thankful that you were
Me
able
too.
to come on today. And
Yeah.
where can people view more of your work and kind of catch up with where you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, so I'm always on Instagram and it's at
Okay.
Carolyn Harper Art.
Okay, we'll be
C
sure to link that.
Yes, Carolyn Harper Art. And my website is also carolynharperart.com. I will have some shows coming up in the Philadelphia area, also in the fall in Colorado, and m moving around to some other places, which I will definitely put that schedule on my Instagram and on my website. Um,
Amazing.
and I love to talk to people about these issues. So, I'm happy to have anyone reach out to me.
Yeah.
And I'm so
That's
happy to be
wonderful.
here to talk to both of you. I love your
Yes.
podcast. I love what you're doing. And I know, Shar, you are an amazing artist as well. And both
So
of you
Thank
great.
you.
educators. So,
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. It's been
um,
Thank you.
wonderful, Carolyn. Wonderful.
Thanks so much, Carolyn. And we'll
Thank,
see you soon on Instagram and your website. I look for those updates and we'll be sure to post them here for everyone.
thank you
Thanks
so
so much.
much.
All
Happy
right.
Thanksgiving,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Oh, you
Thank
too.
you.
You
You as
too.
well.